Smells like football, baby.
What's going on, guys? Welcome into the Fantasy Football Smackdown. I'm your host, Jake Rip. That is at Jake Takes FF on Twitter. And recently dubbed the Excellence of Execution, I believe, if I didn't botch that, by our good friend Memphis over at the Dynasty Warzone. And I like that one. I think I'm really going to lean into it. But as always, we are joined by the creator of this prestigious fantasy football podcast. You know him. You love him. You can find him on Twitter at Kyle Month 8. That's Kyle Month number 8. He's Kyle August. What's up, man?
Well, Jake, thanks for the I don't. Hopefully, everybody loves me. Or else, I don't know what they're doing here, but maybe you clicked play by mistake. It's all good.
That wasn't anything near the intro that you gave me last week, but I could only try my best. So we can only improve from here.
Hey, I appreciate it, man. And excellence of execution. Now I'm gonna have to practice that one. Thanks, Memphis.
Yeah, and we'll have to make sure that Memphis does come up with a moniker for you. I know that that's on deck coming up soon.
He's good at that. So,
quick PSA: if you have not yet heard, this show is now available as part of the Dynasty Warzone Fantasy Football Network. Meaning, we will be streaming live on YouTube every Monday night on the Dynasty Warzone channel. Also meaning you're going to want to subscribe to the flagship Dynasty Warzone show, where on top of receiving the Fantasy Football Smackdown on every Tuesday, you'll also get a weekly dose of Memphis, who we just had on last week to discuss the impact of all these off-season coaching changes and the impact that they're going to have on fantasy football in 2021 and moving forward. So if you missed that show, go back, check it out. Do us a favor, drop us a review. Let Memphis know on the DWZ show what you think of the Fantasy Football Smackdown. Let them know how awesome Kyle August is and Jake Rip, and we'll keep on pedaling from there. Typically, our show covers fantasy football from more of a redraft perspective. We've talked about it before, but considering we are now in the end of February, not a whole ton of news out there as far as fantasy football is concerned. So today's show will take on a little more of a dynasty approach, as Kyle and I are going to share / debate / argue our dynasty startup rankings prior to free agency and the draft. Plenty of things are still going to change, but just to give kind of an idea and gauge where we're at so far. So we'll roll through the top 12 at each position. I'm going to tell Kyle where he's wrong in his rankings. Kyle will then go back, recalibrate, and then he'll be back next week to give you his new rankings. How's that sound, bud?
Yeah, well, it never fails, man. Whenever I talk rankings or I'm going through it, like I could sit down, do rankings. The next day I sit down to, just to look back at all my fine work. I'm like, damn it. Really, I think I got to move him up a spot or two. So I have no doubt that there will definitely be some things that come out of this that I will, move and shake just a bit. But this should be fun because it is right in the heart of dynasty startup season and dynasty season as a whole.
Absolutely, man. I'm definitely starting to get that startup itch. It starts to come rolling in around February, where I got to start seeing where other people are and their dynasty perspectives. But before we get into the meat and potatoes of this show, there's a little bit of news that happened last week. The Carson Wentz news. The Eagles have traded former second overall pick Carson Wentz to the Indianapolis Colts in exchange for a 2021 third-round pick and a conditional 2022 second-round pick that could turn into a first-round pick. So now I'm curious, Kyle, what you think is the effect on the Colts pass catchers, because I'm not sure this is a huge upgrade from Phillip Rivers, because Phillip Rivers, he gets bagged on a lot for his age, where he's at in his career. But in 2020, completed 68% of his passes, threw for over 4,000 yards, 24 touchdowns. It's not great from a fantasy perspective if you had him as your quarterback, but he's very serviceable for a Colts offense that has a lot of solid skill position players. So do you think the addition of Carson Wentz is a plus for guys like Paris Campbell, Michael Pittman, whoever is the tight end?
Yeah, I think that, his familiarity with this system, Frank Reich coming from Philadelphia and working with Carson Wentz in the past, that should be a plus. I think you nailed it right on the head, though. Like, Phillip Rivers wasn't necessarily a fantasy asset over the last even year or two, but you knew what you were getting from him. You knew that the running back was going to see a ton of looks, right? You knew the tight end would be involved. And we saw that. Unfortunately, the Colts just had too many damn tight ends, so we couldn't put our finger on that. But Nyheim Hines, was really good in PPR. And obviously JT, once he got rolling, they really leaned on that run game. I expect most of that to stay, the same as far as them leaning on the run game. Their strength is JT and that offensive line. So I think Wentz can still be, he was a fantasy asset still over the last couple of years, despite not being that MVP caliber player that we saw during that Super Bowl run. But I do think this is maybe a slight bump, for the outside pass catchers, just because Rivers didn't push it down the field a whole lot. We do have some question marks still around T.Y. Hilton and whether he'll return this offseason. I really liked Paris Campbell. They paid a pretty high price for Pittman. I have him in a bunch of spots. So all in all, I feel better about those players than I did a week ago when I had no idea who their quarterback could be, and they picked so late they were going to have to either pay the piper to move up or deal with another free agent. So I liked the move all the way around. I thought it was a solid move for Indy. I really liked the outcome for those players. I don't think it was a massive bump in value where I'm going crazy on these guys, but if I own them already, I'm pretty happy about it.
Yeah, it feels like it was a really good move for Carson Wentz because he's going from Philadelphia where this guy was getting pummeled. I mean, 50 sacks he took. He averaged out to just over 4 sacks a game this guy was taking. So just being surrounded by the Colts offensive line, that's a plus for him. I don't know if it's a plus for the Colts offense. Carson Wentz as a quarterback, he's never been accurate for the majority of his NFL career. 17th in completion percentage in 2016. And then every year after that, 24th in completion percentage, 3rd in completion percentage in 2018, but then 17th and then 34th in 2020. It's hard to imagine him going downward further than that. So I want to say that's only up from here for Carson Wentz as an individual. But yeah, it stands to be seen how that'll work out for the Colts pass catchers.
Yeah, and I know if you're subscribed to the Warzone feed, which Jake already mentioned, and you should be, I know Memphis did a little solo act with him and Wentz sitting in a tree. I think was the Memphis and Wentz sitting in a tree was the name of the episode. I saw him popping up. That's why you got to stay subscribed. That's why you got to be hit that notification on YouTube so you can see when Memphis decides just to fire up a podcast all of a sudden. And I know he was excited about this ad for his Colts. I think this is really probably about best case scenario that if you're a Colts fan, the fact that they were able to go for it last year with Rivers, give it one run, and still be a contender, I think, in 2021. So this will definitely be interesting. And now all eyes turn to the Eagles and Hurts and what the hell they're doing there at number 6 in the draft.
You know what? I got to imagine all Eagles fans are just praying, fingers crossed, do not take a quarterback. I've got to believe that's what they're thinking, right? I mean, you want to have a receiver. They kind of squandered that opportunity last year when we all thought they were going to take Justin Jefferson, and they ended up taking Jalen Reagor, who it stands to be seen how he's going to do for the rest of his career. But if they walk out of that draft with a Jamar Chase, and then Jalen Hurts has weapons like Jamar Chase and now Jalen Reagor, who would make for an excellent number 2. I think that works out for Jalen Hurts. I don't know what's going on in the Philadelphia front office, so maybe they're not thinking the same thing that I'm thinking, and they have their eyes on a prospect coming in. Remains to be seen, but I'm on team Jalen Hurts, so we'll let that be known.
I'm never on team anything Philadelphia Eagles as a Cowboys fan, but from a fantasy perspective, I'm on Team Hurts as well. Like I think he's going to be. You talked about it, over the last couple of weeks with your Konami code quarterbacks. He's the guy, man. He's going to be rushing. He's going to be a top 12 quarterback if he's the starter. And if they can add, another weapon to that offense, that's just going to help him out. The rest of the guys around him at the receiver position and tight end, like, do we think that they could be all that they could have reached their potential with Jalen Hurts? I don't know. But for Miles Sanders getting a new head coach and hopefully not being a part of a committee anymore, and Hurts hopefully being able to do what he does best and rush the ball, I think that's going to breed fantasy goodness in Philadelphia. But we'll see. I hope that not only does Philly go up and they spend another pick on a QB, I hope they got to move up 2 spots to get it and burn some more picks. How about that?
I'm sure the Falcons would be willing to trade back. I wouldn't mind that happening. So we'll see. Fourth overall.
There you go. See, Atlanta just trades back 2 spots. Still, they can pick up their player that they want there, because as these quarterbacks get pushed into that top 5, as a Cowboys fan sitting there at 10, I hope that 4 of these dudes go in the first 9 picks. I want them all to cram up there because, it pushes the talent down.
Well, if Arthur Blank and Jerry Jones would just let us negotiate these trades and we could get something moving here.
Tell me about it. Dak would have been signed to a contract extension 2 years ago, though. So
yes, CeeDee Lamb would be an Atlanta Falcon, but we don't have to get into that.
Okay, maybe I do like the Atlanta front office.
Well, that seems like a good segue, I think, to start talking about some dynasty rankings. And I want to do this a little unconventional. I feel like when people go into rankings, it's always, let's start with the quarterback. I want to get kicked off with some wide receivers, because I think that's a good spot where we can talk some, good basic dynasty strategy. So the way I'm going to do this is instead of going through my top 12 wide receivers and then going through your top 12 wide receivers, because that's a lot of names to riddle off in a row. Let's break it down with the first top 6. So I'm starting off my top 12 dynasty wide receivers, ladies and gentlemen, with your wide receiver 1. And you should love this, Cowboys fan, Kyle August. It's CeeDee Lamb, followed by AJ Brown, DK Metcalf, Devontae Adams, Justin Jefferson, and Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill coming in 6th on my list. First for Kyle August, followed by DK Metcalf, Devontae Adams, CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson, and AJ Brown. So we've got like the same players in that bunch, just kind of shuffled around in a little bit of a different order. I was pleasantly surprised to see that you don't have CeeDee Lamb first like I do. I'm a bit ahead of the curve on you on that one. But you do have him above Justin Jefferson. Was that a difficult decision for you to make, or is this a clear, or is this more of a coin flip since you have them, 1A, 1B?
Yeah, I think whether it was intentional or not. Like for me, if I'm tiering out these young wide receivers, like I kind of have the top 6 in a tier. I think when you look at Tyreek Hill or Devontae Adams, they got a little bit of age on them. Adams, I don't believe, is going to be 20. He just turned 28, I believe. At the end of last season, he has, he's obviously tied Aaron Rodgers with an aging quarterback. And then I believe he's a free agent after this year too. So there's some question marks around Adams, but he was obviously just a freaking monster. But when you talk about these young guys with Metcalf and Brown, the Ole Miss guys, and then the sophomores now in CeeDee Lamb and Jefferson, they are really close. They're in a tier. You can take whichever one you prefer. I love CeeDee Lamb because he's going to be paired with Dak Prescott. If you see all these stupid ass free agent lists and they have Dak Prescott in there, you can just leave that website. He is not a free agent. He will be franchise tagged at worst. He is going to be a Dallas Cowboy for a long period of time, and as long as CeeDee Lamb is there for sure. So I want my young wide receiver tied to a young, a stud quarterback at least. And all of these wide receivers, in my top 4, they have that. So that's why I give Lamb just a slight edge over Jefferson. But man, I don't know if there's a hotter wide receiver than Jefferson right now.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like the Dak Prescott thing cannot be understated. And that's why I do have CeeDee Lamb up at the top, because I think he does present like a higher upside long-term in the Dallas offense than Justin Jefferson does currently in the Minnesota offense. During the first 5 weeks of the season, while Dak Prescott was healthy, Lamb was on pace for 93 receptions and just under 1,400 yards. So those Justin Jefferson numbers were attainable if Dak Prescott's healthy the entire season. That's a small sample size to extrapolate over the entire season. But I have no doubt in my mind that would have been attainable for CeeDee Lamb. Mm-hmm. Despite the backup quarterback play that he had to deal with for the rest of the season, he still ended up coming just short of 1,000 receiving yards as a 21-year-old. You look at CeeDee Lamb and Justin Jefferson and just the adversity that Lamb had to battle as far as he joins an offense where there's already 2 pre-established wide receivers. CeeDee Lamb saw a target share much closer to what you'd normally see with a rookie wide receiver coming into the NFL, an 18% target share. That's fine. That's good. Justin Jefferson saw a 25.8% target share, which is just stupid. That's how you get 1,400 yards as a rookie. But if Dak is the quarterback of the future in Dallas, which we all anticipate and expect, and let's not forget, it's not impossible, and I'm curious your take on this, for Amari Cooper to be traded, because I know that Dallas does need some cap space. I think that they'd be more than happy with going forward with CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup. I mean, if this is the case, then what wide receiver on this list would you rather be invested in than CeeDee Lamb?
Yeah, with Cooper, you know, he got a lot of pub because they signed him to the extension at, you know, he was one of many Cowboys that Jerry Jones decided to invest in long term, rather as Dak Prescott is just sitting there waiting for his. But Cooper's contract is in essence, I think it was a 5-year, $100 million deal total, right? But really, when you break it down, and this is always important to do in Dynasty, you look at the dead money, right? When's the guarantees run out? And in essence, it's a 2-year, $40 million contract. After 2021, they could cut bait with Cooper, which by coincidence, that's the same time they have to make the decision on Michael Gallup. So who was, I believe he was a 3rd round pick. So they have him for 4 years. Both these guys are going to be, you have to make the decision on in 2022. Now, I think Cooper, for whatever reason, continues to kind of be a little bit, people are just burying him because he has had some disappearing act games, but he's so important to this Cowboys offense. I still think that Cooper was going to, remain a Cowboy at least probably for another season or two. His cap number is a little bit high, but we'll see. I don't know that they'll take that route as far as to shed the cap space that they always seem to need by getting rid of Cooper. But again, as I mentioned with the free agent list that include Dak Prescott, any list that has the Cowboys towards the top of teams with salary cap money that doesn't include Dak Prescott and his probably $4 million contract that's going to eat up most of that. So we will see. But I still love the Batman and Robin thing going on there. But obviously, we would give that crown to CeeDee Lamb right now in these rankings.
I made a side note here that I wanted to talk about your wide receiver one, because this drives me crazy, Kyle. And I see this in people's rankings because I just can't understand how Tyreek Hill is the number 1 wide receiver in Dynasty football. Do you want to explain it to me before I go crazy here? Or should I just dive in?
So part of this, I'll give a little bit of background. Part of this might just be the saltiness at myself last year because I was in a startup and it was full PPR and I was staring and it was super flex, right? And I ended up getting pick 11. So I'll keep this story short, but I traded a few picks. So I had pick 11, 12, and 13, but all the quarterbacks were gone. So I was like, screw it. I'm just going to stack everywhere else. So I took Alvin Kamara. I took Devontae Adams, my boy, King Money. But then I was staring down Tyreek Hill and DeAndre Hopkins. And I was like, in PPR, I just feel like Hopkins is the better pick. He just sees more targets. I don't care that he's moving somewhere else. I'm not going to take Tyreek Hill. And I instantly regretted that. Like the second I made the pick, I tried so hard to undo that via trades. I get that Tyreek Hill isn't necessarily the target monster that some of these other wide receivers are, but he's tied to the best quarterback in football. He's not going anywhere. And he is the type of player that wins you weeks when he hits those big plays. It's something that you really can't find anywhere else in the NFL. I just think he's that much of a difference maker. Like straight up, like on a per game, consistency ranking type thing. If consistency is mar your bag, you're probably not going to look for Tyreek Hill. But I love a player that when I plug him in my lineup, he could just go off on any moment, and all of a sudden he's scoring a 60-yard touchdown. And sometimes that's said tongue-in-cheek with other players. It's not with Tyreek Hill. This dude is an absolute stud. So he's my wide receiver 1 based off of his game-breaking ability and the fact that he is tied to Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. I mean, you can't get better than that.
Okay, well, then let me make my argument for why I think it should be CeeDee Lamb instead of Tyreek Hill, because I do think this is kind of where 2 different strategies meet. You can take the Tyreek Hill approach, seems more like a win now move, or CeeDee Lamb. But here's the thing: I still consider CeeDee Lamb to be a win now move. I think he's gonna get 1,000 yards next year. Mm-hmm. But Tyreek Hill, to me, he's like this ticking time bomb. That I think the moment it blows, he's going to become untradeable. The appeal, like you said, right, is that he's the wide receiver 1. He's tied to Pat Mahomes for the foreseeable future. But, do you not think that Kansas City is going to maybe make a wide receiver investment in the 2021 draft for a loaded wide receiver class? Because right now, his only wide receiver competition, and we won't mention Travis Kelce, his only competition at the position is Sammy Watkins and Mecole Hardman. And they both suck. They're both bad. If they went out and they drafted Rondale Moore, this guy might be the younger, better version of Tyreek Hill, and that can happen as soon as this year. And another big reason that I'm off on Tyreek Hill, I don't want to say I'm off because he's my wide receiver 6, wide receiver 7. But what is his bread and butter? It's his speed. And I think we need to start asking ourselves, what is the longevity of a 5'10", 27-year-old wide receiver who relies on his speed to create separation in the NFL? I don't know how long that's going to be. I don't know if we've ever seen someone Tyreek Hill's size go well into his early 30s and still dominate definitely not at the rate he's doing right now, but at least to stay fantasy relevant. But Mahomes, he's going to be in the league for a long, long time, and he's going to produce a ton of wide receiver 1. So I don't think there's any reason to value Tyreek Hill as high as he is. Like he's attached to Pat Mahomes' hip for his entire career. I'm telling you, I think it could be as soon as next year or the year after that. And even if he doesn't fall off by then, next year, people are going to already start asking questions like, okay, well, now he's going to be 28. And now, something that quick scares me. Whereas CeeDee Lamb, in 2 years, I promise you're going to want CeeDee Lamb over Tyreek Hill. I'll put all the money in the world on it. A 23-year-old CeeDee Lamb over an aging Tyreek Hill. But again, maybe this is just where our strategies differ.
I totally get, and the speed thing with any other receiver, I always lean that exactly what you're saying. I think that Tyreek Hill is just so damn fast and quick that he could lose 2.5 steps and still be better than anybody that goes up against him. But I totally get it. Part of it could be, when I'm looking at dynasty rankings, it is, you do have to value age a bit. I maybe don't lean as hard that direction as others. But I will say this. I can almost guarantee you that Tyreek Hill could go out, put up 1,800 yards and 10 touchdowns, and he will not be in people's top 5 next year because he's going to have that 28 next to him, and that just kills. I mean, look at Keenan Allen. There was no reason that people should be dogging him, but I saw I own him on a team. I was looking at what his value was in some trade calculators and stuff. I'm like, this dude is buried. Like, why does everyone think that this receiver just turned to dust? So, I mean, I think we've seen it with DeAndre Hopkins. He just had a great year again. He's still being valued less because of his age. Devontae Adams, I'm surprised in most circles that he's still this high just based off of age. I don't care. I'm willing to say, hey, I'm getting at least 2 good, really, really damn good years out of him. And I'll let future Kyle deal with that other problem. I hear you, man. 100%.
So bad for future Kyle, man. I feel like you really put him in some tough situations.
Oh, that dude's screwed. Yes, yes.
That poor guy is just sweating and twitching, and
no first round picks for him, and all aging players. F that dude, right?
Oh, hilarious. No draft picks and 30-year-old wide receivers for days.
Yes, sir.
Before we jump off wide receivers, there was one more guy. You know what? I didn't even go through our bottom 6 here. So I left off at Tyreek Hill as my 6th. After that, I have Calvin Ridley, DeAndre Hopkins, Stephon Diggs, DJ Moore, Michael Thomas is still hanging around, and T. Higgins. For Kyle, it goes Calvin Ridley, DeAndre Hopkins, Stephon Diggs, exactly the same. And then the back 3 are different. Chris Godwin, Amari Cooper, and Terry McLaurin all sneaking in there. Any of those bottom 3 you want to talk about that really stuck out to you that you said, I got to get this guy in my top 12?
Right now, as we're talking this pre-free agency, Godwin is still a guy that I do think he is really talented. He's super young still. He's the free agent wide receiver that I'm most interested in seeing where he ends up. Now, we saw a report today, and we're not going to talk about it in depth, but like the Lions might franchise tag Kenny Golladay. The franchise tag is the absolute worst freaking thing that ever was invented. When you talk about, just from a fan perspective, you get these huge long lists of all these players, and then no one goes anywhere. They just get tagged, and then they get another year older, and then they're crap, because football just works too fast. Like, if any place should have a franchise tag in sports, it sure as hell shouldn't be the NFL. But whatever, that'll never go away. That gate's been opened. So I really like Godwin a lot. And then, like I said earlier with Cooper, this guy was the wide receiver 1 like 2 years ago. He's still only 27. I still really think he's extremely talented. I think he's going to be on the Cowboys for at least another year or at least 2 years. So I'm going to keep him inside my top 12. But I like how we're pretty similar there with those 7, 8, 9 guys.
Oh, yeah, nailed them all right on the money.
Yes.
One guy I think you've got to get into your top 12, man. I can't get enough DJ Moore. He is absolutely going to be one of the quote-unquote my guys heading into 2021 and beyond. I want him in all my dynasty leagues. And what's beautiful about DJ Moore is, right now, dynasty gamers are bored with DJ Moore.
Mm-hmm.
This guy was drafted with super high expectations, 24th overall in the 2018 draft. And he gives you just under 800 yards as a rookie. Fine. It's good. Then he gives you 2 consecutive years of 1,100 yards and 4 touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
It's good, but it doesn't jump off the stat sheet. It doesn't make you think, oh, he's going to have this next breakout year this next year. In 2020, he's overshadowed by Robbie Anderson. So, I do think he does remain one of the more undervalued wide receiver assets in Dynasty. Carolina is not moving forward with Teddy Bridgewater. So whether it's Mac Jones or Trey Lance or Deshaun Watson or Sam Darnold, any of these names would be improvements. If they signed Ryan Fitzpatrick, that would be an improvement for DJ Moore. This dude hasn't even turned 24, and he has 2 1,000-yard seasons under his belt with bad quarterbacks. So I think that he hasn't even begun to graze his ceiling yet. I think there's going to be a lot of good things in store for DJ Moore.
Yeah, I have him at 15 in my rankings, which is further than we're going to go here. I think you're probably right. Like, people are just kind of getting, tunnel vision maybe a little bit with this guy because he just hasn't popped yet. And it stinks because you talked about he's been in the league for 3 years. What have we seen in those last 3 years? AJ Brown going berserk, Justin Jefferson setting records, DK Metcalf out here, with no shirt on. Like, all of these guys just jumped him all of a sudden. And so, but I think the time is now to buy DJ Moore. He's sitting not many touchdowns. Those will come. And the quarterback situation, even if it's not this year, I think by next year, they'll be in a really good spot, to change things up and give him his best QB ever. So I do really, really like the call. I own him on so many squads. So I'm definitely team DJ Moore. I like that you got him in your top 12.
All right. Well, we spent a lot of time on wide receivers. Let's move on to the running back position. And I get this one kicked off. This is a really bold take, Kyle. So hang on to your pants. I think Christian McCaffrey is the RB1. Again, I'm going to roll through the top 6 here. Christian McCaffrey, and then Jonathan Taylor, new face on the block, Saquon Barkley, Dalvin Cook, DeAndre Swift, and Nick Chubb. Kyle's coming at you with, again, Christian McCaffrey at the top, followed by Alvin Kamara, Jonathan Taylor, Saquon Barkley, DeAndre Swift, and Ezekiel Elliott. For me, there is a tier break here. I see in my rankings, at least, the McCaffrey, Jonathan Taylor, Saquon Barkley. For me, that's the super RB tier right there. All 3 of these guys with super mega receiving upside. And on top of that, they're, just from an athletic standpoint, they're just, to me, so much better that I don't want to say so much better because there's talent on this board, but they're better. They're the best running backs on this board by far, those 3. And no matter what situation they're in, just from a talent perspective, they're the best. If you don't have CMC at number 1, you're wrong. Lock him in for 2,000 all-purpose yards. It's going to happen no matter who the quarterback is there. We got a small taste of Jonathan Taylor at the end of the season, which was enough to confirm to me that that dude is well on his way to becoming the next best running back in the NFL. He saw just a 50% snap share as a rookie, and even that's inflated because over the last 6 games, he saw a 61% snap share, which, we all thought, oh, man, he's getting the ball at the end of the season. That's still not very high. But over the first 9 games of the season, he saw just a 43% snap share. He was on the field for just 43% of snaps over the first 9 games. And to put that into perspective, Christian McCaffrey in his rookie season saw a 72% snap share. At the time, we all thought that was low. We thought Christian McCaffrey wasn't seeing a full workload, and he wasn't. Now he's seeing those upper 90 level snap shares. Sorry, I lost my spot here. But Jonathan Taylor, with just that 43% snap share through the first half of the season, he's still able to come up with just under 1,500 all-purpose yards, 12 total touchdowns. I think that he's just already proving he's in a league of his own from a talent perspective. And if they do start really giving him those touches, he's going to, no pun intended, run with those carries. Bad pun. I wish this is where you really wish you had post-production editing. Yeah,
well, not here, buddy. I'm with you on that tier break. Mine just includes Kamara. CMC, Kamara, JT, and Barkley for me is that tier. We talked about it a few weeks ago, like our lessons learned. Like, those are the only guys that I would consider, if I'm picking at the end of round 1 in the Superflex startup this summer. Like, other than that, see you later. I'm going to go head over to wide receiver and live there. I mean, I looking at my running back 5, and as your running back 5 is DeAndre Swift. Like, I'm looking at my wide receivers. I mean, maybe after, like, he'd maybe come in at like 10. Like, I'd probably take Stephon Diggs and DeAndre Hopkins ahead of Swift. Like, I think that maybe those 4 guys in that tier 1 for me might just be the only running backs I'm taking in the first 2 rounds. Like, I get it. They're extremely valuable, when you hit a good one, but like, the shelf lives are just so freaking short. And as much as I just talked about wide receivers and not being afraid of age with running backs, I definitely am. Like, that cliff is for real. So those top 4 guys for me are just locked and loaded. But I got Kamara at 2. We haven't even mentioned him on your list yet. So what's your thoughts, Jake, on not having old AK-41 in there?
So where do I got him here? RB8 for me, Alvin Kamara. And here's my main concern with Alvin Kamara. Okay. I want to know how much of his success, his career, was propelled by Drew Brees being under center. Okay. Kamara saw 9 targets per game in 2020 before Brees got hurt. That is insane for a running back. 9 targets per game. Get out of here. You wish your wide receiver 1 was getting 9 targets per game. Kamara saw less than 4 targets per game in 3 of the 4 games with Brees inactive, and 2 of those games were against the putrid Atlanta Falcons defense. I know that Taysom Hill had a lot to play in that. We don't know if Taysom Hill is going to be the quarterback, but all these questions, these are reasons that I'm not so eager to rank Alvin Kamara as high. I think Drew Brees' late career playing style, that dump-off playing style, played an enormous part in making Alvin Kamara one of the elite running backs in fantasy football over the past couple years. He relies so largely on that receiving work to produce top 5 RB numbers. You're not getting 100-yard rushing games from Alvin Kamara. You're getting 60 yards, 70 yards. 40 yards sometimes. His 932 rush yards this season, that was his first time ever topping 900 rushing yards in his career. And on top of that, his 187 carries this season was 15th among running backs. And that's despite the Saints averaging the 4th most run plays per game. They were running the ball 31 times per game. They're running the ball a ton. But the fact that he's splitting these carries with Latavius Murray, who saw double-digit carries in half of his games in 2020, that's problematic for me too. And I don't know what Latavius Murray's future is in New Orleans, but again, that's just another question that I have to ask myself. And some of the guys that I've named before Kamara, I don't have to ask as many questions. I know what I'm getting out of them already, and the rushing production isn't such a question mark.
Yeah, and I think if you believe in Alvin Kamara, then this is the time to buy him before the quarterback situation gets worked out. Because if it's Taysom Hill, I'm looking at Kamara like this. He just signed a contract extension. He's not going anywhere. I think even Mr. Insanity, Sean Payton, it'll take maybe 1 year of this Taysom Hill crap for him to eventually just move on. So I think even if
no, man, he loves Taysom Hill. He has him over for holidays and he sends him Christmas cards.
Eventually,
Taysom Hill is actually in his Christmas card.
There you go. That's probably spot on. But I think the wins will need to be there for him to continue this madness. And I just don't see that happening. My hope as an Alvin Kamara owner of either somebody who already has him rostered or looking to acquire him is that it's Jameis Winston under center, who's been there for a year in the system. Pretty much anyone but Taysom Hill. But if I acquire Kamara now, that's an investment for 2022 because I think then his quarterback situation will get rectified at that point. And I'm still okay figuring that Kamara is going to be maybe a low end one instead of a high end one because the dude just catches so many damn passes. Like they can't keep him out of the offense forever. As much as Hill was, not passing the ball to him, I think that would correct itself a little bit, come back more towards the medium a bit. But I think Kamara is I love the fact, that I believe he's 26, but when you're that involved in the passing game and you don't have, 280 carries a season, like I think he can last a little bit longer than some of these other running backs. Like Zeke he's coming towards the cliff. I think Dalvin Cook is approaching that cliff as well. We all know Derrick Henry is somehow he's like Derrick Henry is like freaking Indiana Jones. He didn't even throw the sand. He just ran out there. He's like in the middle of nowhere, but there's a bridge and he's still standing, right? Like
comparison, Indiana Jones.
So with these guys, you know that they have a shelf life, but I think Kamara is just a guy that I think can last longer. And that's why he's still in my elite tier.
All right, we gave you our 1 through 6, 7 through 12 at the running back position. I've got Ezekiel Elliott. There's your boy Alvin Kamara, followed by Antonio Gibson, Cam Akers, J.K. Dobbins, a big bunch of rookies right there, and then Miles Sanders to cap it all off. Over onto Kyle's side, we've got Dalvin Cook at number 7, followed by Nick Chubb, Derrick Henry, Austin Eckler, CEH, and Miles Sanders. So we might as well just rip the Band-Aid off right here because this is a big topic, I think. When I see people talking about their running back rankings for Dynasty, it's what do you do with Derrick Henry? And I'm on team. I don't want him on my roster. I view Derrick Henry very similar to how I view Tyreek Hill for Dynasty purposes, which is a weird comparison given the two very different body types. But I believe he's 27 now, and this will be his age 28 season coming up for Derrick Henry. And again, like Hill, I think Derrick Henry's collapse is going to be quick, and I think it's going to be steep. It's going to be brutal. Do I think the collapse starts in 2021? No, but I think, as soon as 2022, I'm super concerned. He was used lightly for his first couple years in the league. But he's coming off 380 carries this season, 100 more than Josh Jacobs, who was third in carries in the NFL, 300 carries the season prior, 400 attempts as a junior at Alabama. I guess the question at this point is just how long do we expect Derrick Henry to remain so durable, regardless of having the most demanding workload for a running back in the league? And even, you look at the loss of Arthur Smith, will that have an impact on his workload? And I'll ask the same question as I did with the receivers. So, maybe this is just a good way that I look at dynasty football or dynasty fantasy football is in 2 years, who will be the more valuable asset? I think that's a nice way to look about it because, you look into next year. That's when people, if you want to start kicking the tires on a Derrick Henry trade, the guy that you're talking to, he's looking into next year. So you might as well be 2 years ahead. So, 2 years ahead. Do you want Derrick Henry or do you want Antonio Gibson, Cam Akers, J.K. Dobbins? Any of these guys that I have on the list, in that similar area to where you have Derrick Henry. But I want the upside of these 22-year-old playmakers, these diverse playmakers, some of which can even catch the ball, which, we don't know yet if Derrick Henry can do.
Well, he had a career high in catches there, Jake. So I think you just need to pump the brakes, bro.
Put some respect on the man's name.
So here, if you draft in your startup, if you draft Antonio Gibson over Derrick Henry in 2 years, you will probably have Antonio Gibson as your starting running back. If you draft Derrick Henry, you will have who the hell knows at running back position, but you might have a championship sitting on your mantle. So for me, this running back position gets ugly quick. And after Swift, I'm really not thrilled about any of these guys. Even these rookies are probably going to go earlier than I will take them. Mm-hmm. So Derrick Henry is a guy that I think he is such a difference maker in just 2021 alone that I'm willing to put him here and not play that little roulette game of will these guys last? I mean, we could have a whole damn podcast just on these sophomore running backs now because the class was really fun. Like it was a really awesome class, and hopefully some of these guys like Dobbins and Akers and Gibson like really even take that next step, right? Especially Akers and Gibson, that took them a little bit while to get. Sorry, Dobbins and Akers took a little bit to get going, but they were studs, right? I think that, you can look, just look back just a couple of years, man. This position just changes so quickly. We were probably talking about Leonard Fournette in the same vein just a couple of years ago, and the dude couldn't even stay on a roster. Yeah. And he's still young, and he's, he got it done in the Super Bowl, and that's great. And I'm happy for him. And he's playoff Lenny now, and that's hilarious. But I think that, I'm investing in those first 4 guys, maybe Swift. And then beyond that, I'll just take a bunch of guys in the middle and just see what happens. But I really do like the places where I have these rookie backs. I dig it, but I just don't know if I value them enough to just be like, oh man, Derrick Henry is a top 5 guy for me in 2021. I think I'm just going to take the chance, but that's just me, I guess. Maybe it's just me hating running backs altogether.
I do have like a separate tier at the bottom of my rankings there where those sophomore running backs come in, and I had real trouble trying to figure out who I wanted to rank above one another. Does one of these guys stand out among the rest to you between Antonio Gibson, Cam Akers, and J.K. Dobbins? Because I got them just smashed into a tier, and they're punching and scrapping and trying to figure out who's going to be ahead. Right now, I've got Gibson leading the way.
Yeah, I would probably, and I did rank these all the way. I have these guys ranked. I have Gibson, I have Dobbins at 13, Gibson at 20, and where the heck do I have Cam Akers? I have Cam Akers at 21. So like, get out of here. There's a sound. So I like Dobbins the best from a talent standpoint. Like I think he is the best running back, but again, now that I'll go back and refresh my rankings, like I should probably have Gibson higher because I think he's going to be more involved in the passing game.
Yeah.
Dobbins just not going to catch it now.
The big thing, right, with Gibson, like he checks all those boxes as a runner, as a pass catcher.
Mm-hmm.
Just 22 years old. The dude has 800 yards and 11 touchdowns. I think he just gets lost in this group of Jonathan Taylor and DeAndre Swift, guys who are already in the top 10. And I think Gibson is just he's a diamond in the rough, really.
Yeah, and I think the most interesting name right now might be Cam Akers of that group, who I would put third. You have right there in the middle. He could be like his range of outcomes, I think, are much wider than the other two. Like if Akers gets 75% of what that Rams running back generally does, holy crap, watch out, dude. But like I'm just not as sure. Like if J.K. Dobbins was in LA with Sean McVay, I'd be like top 10, book it. But I just don't. I just don't feel as confident yet in Akers, or the fact that maybe the Rams slide back and for some reason let Malcolm Brown still see touches. So we will see. But again, all these sophomore running backs are a lot really fun to have on your roster right now because they pretty much all hit except Keyshawn Vaughn. Like, I mean, everybody was solid, dude. Like,
poor Keyshawn.
Just think about it. I mean, even Gibson made his way into that conversation, and James Robinson, who he isn't in our top 12s, but like he is being valued as an RB1 in a lot of places. Like this running back class has lived up to the hype over the last few years of having to hear about all this.
I'll add that too. If there's one last thing that I'll say to wrap up the running back position, James Robinson in the top 10 for Dynasty. Come on, people. This position is so oversaturated with talent. It's actually surprising that James Robinson was even the guy in Jacksonville this year. He was just kind of the process of elimination, and he was fantastic this year. And I was shitting on him all year, and he shat back on me in fantasy scoring, but. You know what? I think he's going to end up being more of a one-hit wonder than anything. I don't. We'll see if that comes back to bite me, but I'm not in on James Robinson at all.
I think Robinson, if I was comparing him as an example to like Derrick Henry, right? Robinson's super young. He's only entering his second year. I think he is set up for a phenomenal 2021 still. Jacksonville has so many freaking holes. Why would you spend anything on the running back position? But again, comparing it to Derrick Henry, like what happens if the Jags fill a bunch of those slots and then like, we want somebody with a little bit more juice at that, at our running back spot. They add another mouth. Like, I think, that's the worry I have with him, and any running back, but especially somebody with just no draft capital. He's in a good spot because there's very little chance, I think, that they invest heavily in that position, as competition. But I have him ranked right around 15th. And that's because I think he might, I'm looking at him maybe as like a one more year kind of guy. And I hope he proves me wrong because he's been a great story, but I just don't, not too often you see guys like that get it done for a long period of time.
All right, well, let's move on to the tight end position. Kyle, you want to tell me who's the tight end one?
It's Travis Kelce, man. I don't care how old the dude is. He's a freaking monster. The dude outscored the tight end 3 by 100 points. Like, are you kidding me? Like, get out of here with this noise.
Yeah, we already discussed it recently in our Lessons Learned show. You can go back and check that out if you have not already. But it is pretty much Travis Kelce or bust. I think that goes for redraft. I think it, for the most part, goes for dynasty. But he's going to score twice as many points as the tight end 4. I don't care that he's going to be 32 this season. If you own Travis Kelce, especially in tight end premium leagues, that's just one of those players that I was talking before, Kyle. You just ride him off into the sunset. Just enjoy all the points that you're going to get from Travis Kelce from now through the end of his career. I'm not trying to sell high on any of his ridiculous statistical seasons. It's just Travis Kelce, tight end 1, but probably until he retires, or until Kyle Pitts enters the league. But I'm getting ahead of myself right now. Let's go through the top 6 dynasty tight ends. On my side, I got Travis Kelce, followed by George Kittle, TJ Hawkinson, Darren Waller, Kyle Pitts, and Mark Andrews. Kyle, you've got Travis Kelce, George Kittle, Darren Waller, TJ Hawkinson, Mark Andrews, and Kyle Pitts. So the exact same 6 tight ends, just kind of shuffled around in the order. We don't have to talk too much about these guys. Just real quick, someone like, give me your vibe on TJ Hawkinson, because this was supposed to be the Kyle Pitts. This was the dominant tight end coming into the league before it was Kyle Pitts, and we haven't really seen that yet. Now he's got Jared Goff throwing him the ball. What's your vibe on TJ?
Yeah, and unfortunately, these tight ends do take time to develop, but I just don't know that he will break into that tier of 3. Like, the reason I have Waller at 3 is just because I think he is an absolute difference maker at the position. We've seen it in Oakland, or in Vegas now too, that he sees a ton of targets, and he is he's a complete freak. Hawkinson, while very, very good, I just don't think has enough around, as far as his quarterback situation goes, and just him by himself. Like, I just don't know if he can make that leap into the elite. And if you're not in the elite at tight end, I won't be seeing you. Like, it is literally
exactly right, because he was 3rd in yards among tight ends, right? 3rd. And you think, oh, great, I'll take the tight end 3 in yards. 723 yards though. It's
He hit him, and Mark Andrews are very similar to me in that, they will be top 5 tight ends probably the majority of their career. They need those huge touchdown numbers probably to make up the gap that Kittle and Kelce will be putting up 1,200 yards a season. And I just don't see that happening. So for me, that the difference between Hawkinson at 4 and, somebody, for me, I have Noah Fant at 9. Like, okay, I have Mike Gesicki at 12. Not that far apart, when you're talking about a startup, and I got to take Hawkinson around 4, or I could just wait until round, 8 or 9 to pick up Gesicki. Like, I'm doing that, Yeah.
This Kyle Pitts guy who's coming into the league, like, it's very rare that we can put someone into our top 12 rankings and they haven't played a snap in the NFL yet, but this is that dude. 770 yards, 12 touchdowns in just 8 games this season as a tight end. He's going to get drafted in the first round of the NFL draft. I don't think he's landing spot dependent at all. Whoever puts in the draft capital, you'd hope is going to utilize the guy to the best of his ability. But you talk about how impressive Darren Waller is as a receiver and, the size, speed guy. Boy, if that's not Kyle Pitts 10 times over. And that's what the note I have here is I do view Kyle Pitts as like a better version of Darren Waller. And if he lands in the right system, it's wheels up, man. He's gonna fly up that chart. What do I have him at right now? Tight end 5. Watch out, TJ Hawkinson, because your job is not safe, my friend.
I agree. I have him at 6 only because I'm waiting for that landing spot. That's it. And you mentioned, like, the team that spends the draft capital on him will use him. The Cleveland Browns just paid Austin Hooper to be the highest paid tight end in the entire league and didn't use him for shit. So, like, I really hope that everything just lands smooth. We good to go. Pitts is he's already top 6. He is the best part is not only could he be Darren Waller, which is awesome, is that we will get Kyle Pitts at rookie Darren Waller, not Darren Waller that we needed to wait until he was 27 and 28 to start hitting just due to what he had to overcome. And he's a freaking phenomenal story, and I've loved watching him. So to see another guy like him coming in, I'm extremely excited, and he will hopefully be in that top tier where it's now 4 guys and Kyle Pitts is a difference maker. And I don't mind taking this shot on him over some of the, 700 yards and 6 touchdowns. That doesn't do anything for me,
What do you hope for as far as like a landing spot? Because in my mind, I keep picturing him in an Arizona Cardinals jersey catching passes from Kyler Murray, and it looks really, really good.
I actually haven't given it too much thought, I guess. I probably have to go back and see, who's in the best position.
And who needs a tight end
to draft him. I mean, the only team that drafts tight ends early is the Lions. So, we know that won't happen. There you go, Jerry.
We don't know that. They might.
So, I don't know. I honestly haven't given it too much thought. I think he should be able to do it anywhere. And teams should be able to utilize him because he's a freak, man, and there's no other way to put it. And he's a matchup nightmare. So I think he needs to be here already before we even know where he's gonna what jersey is gonna be donning on kickoff weekend.
Going through tight ends 7 through 12 on my list, I have Dallas Goedert, followed by Hunter Henry, Noah Fant, Evan Ingram, Mike Gesicki, and Jonnu Smith. Kyle has an appearance from Irv Smith coming in at number 7, followed by Dallas Goedert, Noah Fant, Zach Ertz. He's still hanging in there. He's alive, baby. Followed by Hunter Henry and Mike Gesicki. Kyle, tell me something real quick about Zach Ertz because I could not fit him into my top 12.
Zach Ertz is roughly the same age. I think he's 6 months younger actually than Travis Kelce.
Oh, we can't do that.
No, that's one thing. I don't think the dude's done yet. I still think he is talented enough to put up the same type of numbers as these other guys that are in this tier. He was in that Uber tier, a few years back. That obviously went away. But I think if he lands somewhere where he's going to see targets, he still has the ability to put up the same type of numbers as as Dallas Goedert, as Mark Andrews, as TJ Hawkinson. Like and the price is way cheaper. So like I'm trying to pick him up where I can. The guys after him, I do like Gesicki a little bit more. He would probably be actually be tough for me to take Ertz over Gesicki. But behind that, in my list, Evan Ingram, Hayden Hurst, Logan Thomas, Austin Hooper. Like, I don't want those guys. Like, I don't want anything to do with that. Like,
Austin Hooper is getting so much hate on this show, man.
I'll take Zach Ertz still as a borderline tight end 1 and just see if he's got one little run in him left. Like, I don't think he's completely over the hill done. I just think he's dealing with some injuries, dealing with a really bad situation there in Philadelphia as far as how that offense was rolling. And really, the second half of 2019, he was really good. I mean, he was still really freaking good. So, I mean, I don't think it's that far removed. It seems like forever ago, but, just 12 months, I still think he's valuable enough to have in your top 12.
Yeah, someone like Zach Ertz, I don't know, man. Just kind of screams diminishing returns to me. I just don't see any landing spot where he's able to have that career resurgence that brings him back to 100 plus targets, 70 plus receptions. I have heard people kicking around the idea of Ertz to the Colts, reunited with Carson Wentz. So maybe that scenario keeps him alive and gives him fantasy value. But other than that, wouldn't you rather have a guy that I've got on my list that you don't have on yours? Have you forgotten about Evan Ingram?
No, I have not. I hate Evan Ingram.
Not only have I not forgotten, I despise the man.
The dude has had nothing but opportunity, and he's just done nothing. And
that's not true. He hasn't done nothing.
He had 70 catches last year? I mean, and the dude's still just – the yardage has not been there. The name outweighs the value, what you're going to see from him week in and week out. Like, I will never find myself drafting Evan Ingram ever again. I've been burned way too many times trying to buy into the fact that he is this.
That's where the value lies, ladies and gentlemen. You hear Kyle burned too many times. He was burned too many times. He had Evan Ingram on his team, knowing that Evan Ingram was this very talented tight end, knowing that he was going to soak up targets in this league. 109 targets last year. That was 4th in the league. He played 16, he played 16 games, and that was everyone's big concern heading into 2020 was, can he even be on the field for an entire season? Nowadays, no one wants to even rank Evan Ingram among the top 12 dynasty tight ends, Kyle included.
Where did he finish last year? 4th in targets. What is he? He was tight end 18.
Meanwhile, listen, he was practically as good as TJ Hawkinson last season. In fact, what TJ Hawkinson did this year, Evan Ingram did that as a rookie. TJ Hawkinson's stats this year: 67 catches, 720 yards, 6 touchdowns. Evan Ingram in 2017, 64 catches, 722 yards, 6 touchdowns. Why are we all in on Hawkinson? No one has a problem making TJ Hawkinson a top 5. He's going to be a consensus top 5 tight end on everyone's rankings, but no one wants anything to do with Evan Ingram, who's still seeing over 100 targets. Just wait. This New York Giants offense, they're on the up and up. I'm not selling on Evan Ingram. I'm holding, folks. Hold.
There's nowhere to go but up. That offense was complete and utter trash last year. And I much love for my buddy Memphis, but I'm not buying into the Jason Garrett thing. The dude didn't really run an offense for years. So I know I'm going to get a text from him, and I can't wait. And I am on Team Daniel Jones still. But Ingram was the only mouth to feed there, and he still couldn't get it done. Saquon Barkley's coming back. They got to add somebody else as the alpha wide receiver one, and they're still going to have Sterling Shepard and Slayton there. There's just too much else going on. Ingram had his opportunity to show that he can be an alpha.
I had the same logic with Darren Waller last season. I said they're bringing in receivers. I said Josh Jacobs is going to catch the ball more. You know what?
He did, right? Technically.
Darren Waller, yeah, maybe he did. But no, Darren Waller was excellent. Fantastic.
Yeah. But I get it. Like I have Ingram at 13. So yes, he did not make my top 12. But as far as the value, I told like would I take, these are just, and if you tier these guys out, especially, you'll be able to tell the difference. But like, would I take TJ Hawkinson again in the 4th round or Evan Ingram in round 9? I'm taking Evan Ingram, right? Like I totally, they're not that far apart. Like as far as the tiers go, there honestly is probably just one tier difference between, Hawkinson, Andrews, Pitts. And then after that, like 7 through freaking 15 could all be in one tier. Like I do not care. But somebody will take Evan Ingram ahead of me. So
that's something else important that we should bring up. Like the fact that I have CeeDee Lamb ranked as my number 1 dynasty wide receiver in this startup dynasty episode that we're putting out there. That doesn't mean go out and take CeeDee Lamb with the 7th overall pick, because chances are the people you're drafting with, CeeDee Lamb might not even go until the 3rd round. So go ahead, take your Tyreek Hill. He'll be garbage in 2 years, but you can draft Tyreek Hill in the 1st round. You can circle around and grab a running back, and then you can take CeeDee Lamb in the next round. But you're going to love those returns on CeeDee Lamb's all I'm saying.
Oh man, I'm gonna we need receipts on this, because when Tyreek Hill is going off still in 2023 or whatever, I'm gonna be hitting you up here on this very podcast, hopefully.
All right, let's move on. We got a few minutes left here to talk some quarterbacks circling around to the big boy position here. We'll get kicked off with the first 6. That's going to be Patrick Mahomes kicking it off, followed by Kyler Murray, Dak Prescott, Deshaun Watson, Josh Allen, and Justin Herbert. For Kyle, he's going to also start with Patrick Mahomes. Nice call. Deshaun Watson, Dak Prescott, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and Kyler Murray. So, I mean, what's more obvious? Mahomes is QB1 or Kelsey is tight end 1?
I think Mahomes at QB1 has to be the most obvious, because he's probably he is the 101 in startups, in Superflex. So yeah, the dude is just, he's paired with Andy Reid, and that's all he needs. And he's got a new shiny contract within the last year too. So he's going to be there.
How about Kyler Murray, man? My QB2 and Kyle's QB6. We talked about how necessary it is to roster the Konami quarterback, did we not, Kyle? From weeks 1 through 10, mind you, the majority of the season, Kyler was averaging 30 fantasy points per game. He was QB1 in fantasy football over that period of time. He was averaging just over a rushing touchdown per game over that period of time. And then the back half of the season, weeks 11 through 17, he gives you just 1 total rushing touchdown. The rushing fell completely off. But the fact that Kyler is every bit of the rusher that Lamar Jackson is, maybe to a degree, Lamar Jackson's a rather dynamic player. But along with, that and being a 67% passer, kind of leaves me no choice. That combined with his youth to make him the second most valuable quarterback in Dynasty, just behind Pat Mahomes. What do you think of this guy?
Yeah, I have him at 6. And again, speaking in tiers here, Mahomes is all by himself. No one I don't even know in the spreadsheet if I can even move him. I think he's just locked in there. But 2 through 6 are in their own tier. So Watson, Prescott, Allen, Jackson, and Kyler Murray. Alan Jackson's a somebody, right? It sounds like a country singer if I ever thought of one. But anyway,
I don't have to buy that blues record.
Yeah. So for me, I totally I own Kyler Murray. So here's my own dilemma, and I know that someone is probably listening to this that's in that league. I have a league where my QB2 is no one. It is literally super flex, meaning I've been flexing someone else probably in 2021 because I just couldn't get that position addressed. and I just rode with Phillip Rivers all last year, and that was fine. I had a good season. My QB1 is Kyler Murray. Like, I want to trade Kyler Murray away probably to try to get 2, but I'm like, I'm probably taking a loss because whatever 2 guys I can get, do they even equal Kyler Murray? Like,
I'll answer that for you. A Baker Mayfield plus a Kirk Cousins does not equal a Kyler Murray.
Exactly. So I love owning him. Like, the rushing at the end of the year, that was definitely injury related. So I don't think you can have any concerns with that. You see what happens when it goes away, for sure. But that's any quarterback. So, all these guys, Dak doesn't run a ton, but he does get rushing touchdowns, which, he's pretty good for at least 4 to 6 of those a year. So that offsets the fact that he doesn't necessarily rush for, 500 yards, but the rest of these guys all move around really well. And, these are my first 6 in a super flex startup, like without even batting an eye. Like, I'm not even toggling to other positions. Like, these are my guys. So, 2 through 6 are in a tier, but yeah, it's all locked and loaded.
You and I are both rather bullish on Deshaun Watson, despite the ongoing discussions with him and the Texans. But he's coming off a career season, despite losing DeAndre Hopkins, 70% completion, 4,800 yards, 33 touchdowns, all career highs. You've got him ranked right now as the number 2 quarterback as a Texan. So I'm curious, how far can he fall down your rankings? Like, what's the worst case scenario? What's the disaster ripcord for Deshaun Watson that plummets him down your rankings? Or is that even a thing?
I mean, if he got traded to the Jets and then the Jets sent out a press release right afterwards saying, JK, Adam Gase still works here, then he would probably fall to 6. But like, even then, I'm still buying in. Watson's an absolute monster. He can do it with any weapons around him. His weapons last year were still good. Like, it wasn't Hopkins, but Cooks and Fuller played well. So I think Watson, as long as he's a Texan, he's 2. If he's anywhere else, he's still my top 6 without any issue. That gets super young, and he's a beast.
One last thing I want to touch on here. I thought it was interesting. We both did put Trevor Lawrence in our rankings, so another guy who hasn't taken an NFL snap yet. But I have Joe Burrow ahead of Trevor Lawrence, and you have Trevor Lawrence ahead of Joe Burrow. So real quick, with Joe Burrow, I'm just trusting that the Cincinnati medical staff, they're really going to just take their time, do the right thing with their franchise quarterback. And then whether or not he's ready for the 2021 season, I mean, I don't know how you can come away from his rookie debut without being impressed by what you saw. Aside from a bad performance in Pittsburgh in week 10, Burrow was completing just under 70% of his passes, 68% of his passes as a rookie, despite having to run for his life behind that terrible offensive line. He was giving you 268 pass yards per game, more than Aaron Rodgers. That's more than Russell Wilson. If the front office is able to execute this draft, and that's a big if, they'll improve the offensive line. They'll add to an already incredible T. Higgins and give Burrow some more reliable receiving threats. And all of that, those things seem likely to me. And I think that all points to Joe Burrow being a fantasy monster for the next, the foreseeable future. As for Trevor Lawrence, he's been touted as the best quarterback in his class since his freshman year at Clemson. He's been praised for his NFL-ready mechanics and has drawn that Andrew Luck comparison more than once. I think mostly speaking to how NFL-ready he is as a prospect. But he is, at this point, practically a sure thing to go to Jacksonville first overall. Julian Urban Meyer in Jacksonville as they start their 2021 rebuild. But what is it about Trevor Lawrence that you prefer to Joe Burrow? Or is this another one that I'm kind of just nitpicking your rankings? Because you do have them like side by side. But I'm curious if there was some trait that Lawrence possessed that you're like, you know what? Or are you scared about the Burrow injury? What's the deal?
I think for me, and I think he answered a lot of questions. Burrow did last year. Like, he was a 1-year starter on a really good team with some of the best weapons in football, in college football. And he came to the NFL and was blessed as far as from the wide receivers he was able to throw to, and having Joe Mixon, now the offensive line, like you mentioned, left some to be desired. But he answered a lot of those questions. For me, though, just the pedigree of Trevor Lawrence and how much he is touted by has been touted for years, ever since he broke onto the scene in college football. He has been the quarterback, right? Like, there's no one else has been able to compete with him as far as evaluation and coming into the NFL. So I'm still putting him, ahead. I'm putting him ahead of Burrow based off of that pretty much. The landing spots for both teams, being in Jacksonville versus Cincy, both teams are kind of trash. The defenses are going to be bad. I'm be buying Lawrence just as much as I was buying Burrow last year in redraft leagues, even because he's going to have to throw the ball a ton. And Burrow was, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but he was on pace to throw the most pass attempts by like far, like not even close. So I think, there's definitely upside for Burrow as long as he's in 2021, even as long as he's ready to go in that first few weeks. But they're very, very close. I definitely am taking both of those guys ahead of, Aaron Rodgers, the Matthew Staffords, Carson, any of the older guys. Like, I think it's worth taking the shot on those younger rookies. And when I'm looking at Trevor Lawrence, especially right now, I'm looking at like, hey, I own the 101. Would I trade that 101 straight up for Joe Burrow? And I don't think I would. Like, I would probably just keep it, take Trevor Lawrence. That's the way you should be looking at it right now. And that's even like, it's tough to say, like when I'm seeing these startup drafts right now and Trevor Lawrence is being taken very early, I'm like, man, like, are we really taking him in the first round? I'm like, all right, or would you trade, like I would take McCaffrey over him, right? I'm taking Tyreek Hill, but like Travis Kelce, am I taking Trevor Lawrence or Travis Kelce? Like, and it's just, it's crazy when you have the 101 now, that's gold this year. So, and Superflex especially. So it's fun. There's a lot of young names on this list. It's been awesome to see these QBs coming in. But if you don't have one of those guys, man, like that cutoff for me is right there at 10 with Joe Burrow. Like if you don't have one of those guys, it's an uphill battle for sure in Superflex leagues to overcome the fact that, at least 8 to 10 teams in your league will be dominating you at QB1.
Yeah, for sure. All right, well, that's all I've got. Kyle, month 8. You want to sign off here?
Yeah, I will. You can follow me on Twitter at Kyle Month 8. That's Kyle August, by the way. So at Kyle Month number 8 on Twitter.
Clever.
Breaking news. You can follow Jake at Jake Takes FF. You can follow the show at FF Smackdown Pod. I might start using that Twitter handle again one day, but you just follow it anyway. It's cool. Stay subscribed to the Warzone. We're gonna be back next week. I know the Warzone guys are here on this feed Wednesday, covering the rest of their sweethearts and breakup teams. So always good stuff from the DWZ Football Network. So you guys take it easy, stay safe, and we'll be right back here next week. Take it easy.
See ya.